Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. I saw the original production in 1971. It's Greek theater in Los Angeles. Yes, I'm 42 still. um, Nevertheless, the story of the last week of Jesus is pretty amazing. And we're talking about this story, and we're talking about forgiveness and the path to forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. Jesus had a lot of work to do. He had to deal with what Judas was inevitably going to do. He had to face that. He had to face his own challenges with the path forward that he was looking at. And we're not going to get too deeply into that today. But this Last Supper scene, this event, remember that this is a bunch of young Jewish men, for the most part, walking around the area, not too far. They never traveled very, very far from home. And this is the Passover feast, where they are celebrating the freeing of the slaves from Egypt, their forebears, being released by the Pharaoh and leaving the area and going inevitably, eventually, to Israel, returning home and embracing their freedom after so many years. So Jesus and the disciples and a few others are gathering together to celebrate Passover, to enter into a time of remembrance of there are people moving from enslavement to freedom. So this is the context within which they're meeting and setting up this way forward for Jesus to come into his own larger ministry. Surrounded by all the conflict, all the various people embracing Jesus and various people pushing back against Jesus, and there's all kinds of chaos all going around. But the disciples are gathering together with Jesus for what they thought was a time of just, let's have dinner. Let's get together and celebrate this and celebrate our own traditions. So, with all that in mind, what's next? Jesus knows that Judas is getting ready to betray him. He knows, he has this knowing that Simon, he looks at Simon Peter and says, you know what? Before the cock crows 3 times, you're going to deny me. And Peter's like, no, not going to happen. And Jesus looks at Judas and he calls him out. He says, look, go do what you're going to do. I know you're going to betray me. Go do your thing. You go do what you have to do. Now, in the video, Jesus is portrayed as being pretty angry, pretty upset by all this. Now, is that the case? Maybe. Depending on the version of the story that you read. Remember, in the New Testament, we have the 4 Gospels. We have a lot of different versions of the way all this kind of goes down, and there's some similarities and there are some differences. In the version I tend to lean towards a little bit myself, in the Gospel of John, as part of this whole process, early on, before the meal even starts, after Jesus has looked at Judas and said, "Hey, go do your thing," and Peter says, "You're going to deny me 3 times." And everybody's all wound up, but Jesus goes about the process of washing their feet and being in service to all the disciples, including the ones that he knows are going to kind of let him down, so to speak. So he moves into a place of being in service, of loving all of these people, and entering into a place of love and care and comfort with himself, because he has to be in that place if he's going to truly serve. So how do we do that for ourselves? One of the first quotes I ran across as I was looking at forgiveness and looking at the story was this one here. And it's one that I forgot to give you, Joe, so I'm sorry. It says, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and to discover that the prisoner was you. Because I'm the one holding on to it. I'm the one that's upset. This other person may not even know how I'm feeling. Probably doesn't, and may not even care, quite honestly. So Jesus has come to a point where he's just settling in, and he says, you know what? I'm just going to love these people. I'm going to love them right where they are. And I'm going to move through this process from a place of love. Now, in a couple of the versions of the story in the Bible, it talks about them gathering in an upper room in this building. And isn't that interesting? Talking about rising up, about looking at things from a higher level, a more expanded view of life itself, of raising our consciousness to that place of love, raising the vibration to one where we are in love and celebration. Isn't that nice? And that's the place where forgiveness lives. That's the place where love lives. Is when we raise ourselves up above that vibration of anger or jealousy or resentment and say, you know what? No, I'm just going to love. I'm just going to love and allow love to lead me. Allow love to guide me and carry me forward. You see, because Jesus chose to stand in a place where he saw the divine in all of it. He recognized the divinity in all of it, not just in the people, but in the circumstances, in the course of events that he felt or knew were going to unfold before him. And in this moment that we're talking about today, he chose to just simply be in love. To not buy into the anger, to not buy into the jealousy, to not buy into the resentment, but to just simply love and be present with what he was being called to do in the moment. Mark Twain says this about forgiveness. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Wow. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Isn't that nice? Can I find the space in myself to just let go? To allow myself to be broken open in such a way by the events of my life that that fragrance of love shines forth. That scent of the violet can be given to whatever person, place, or thing I think has harmed me in some way, so that I can let it go and just move on. I can let it go and just simply move on. And as I thought about forgiveness and thought about all of this, the phrase that kept coming up for me is this: how much can I love? How much am I willing to love? How open can I be? How vulnerable, how authentic, how present with my own feelings and my own process in whatever moment I'm being called forward to just simply love. Because we all know, we all claim to believe, we all believe, we teach, we learn, that everywhere we look, we see the presence of God. And if God is love, then that love is everywhere present too. In whatever I might see going on around me, love is there. The divine is there. Or as Holmes writes in The Science of Mind, this: to the one that loves much, much is forgiven. To the one that loves much, much is forgiven. How much in love with myself, how much in love with life, how much in love with whatever is going on around me can I be? Because we say that it's all infinite. We believe and say that love is an infinite power and presence, always moving, always expanding, always growing. And can I allow myself to get outside of my own little limiting thoughts about how much I can love? How much beyond that can I get? I get cranky behind the wheel of the car. I drive a lot for work, Monday through Friday. Some days a little, some days a whole lot. And yeah, I have times when I get cranky behind the wheel. And I have to stop and breathe and say, you know what? That person that just sped around me and cut me off and then slowed down. Was that you? I don't know what's going on in their world. Or that person that goes speeding by, that comes up really fast behind me and then nudges me, or feels like they're nudging me. They're not really nudging me. It feels like they're hurrying me along. And then I move over and I don't know what's happening. They may have just got bad news and they're trying to get to the hospital real fast. Can I love that person? Can I love the person that told a story about me that is absolutely not true? Can I love the person that I feel hasn't forgiven me for that mistake that I made 20 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 2 weeks ago? And can I forgive myself for that? Can I set that aside? Can I love me just a little bit more? Because you know what? I can't go back and change that. You see, it's all just there are all these dynamics and all these things, and we talk about forgiving, we talk about there are all kinds of processes we can do to forgive. We can write that letter to that person, and maybe we send it and maybe we don't. But write that letter and get it out. Make the phone call. Spend the time to write that letter to me and say, you know what, Lee? You're okay. Yes, you've made mistakes. Yes, you've made changes. Yes, people's feelings have gotten hurt, and maybe your feelings have gotten hurt, Lee, because you chose not to do X, Y, or Z. But here you are. Here I am. Here you are. Here Jesus sits with his disciples and his friends that have been on this journey together to create this whole reset of a way of being, to move from the laws of God to blending that with the love that Jesus represented, that he stood for and stands for as an avatar in this world and this consciousness in which we live. Above all else, that's what he taught us, was to love one another. And as part of the process, if you look in John 14, 5 and 6, Thomas says to Jesus, he says, "Our Lord, we don't know where you are going, and how can we know the way?" And Jesus said to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no man comes to the Father except by me." And Joe, can you leave that up? Let's leave that up for a minute. When Jesus is saying, "I am," and he says this, he uses this phrasing a lot. When Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except by me," what he's talking about is not him as an individual. He's talking about his way of being, his way of expressing, the way that he is teaching us to be and to express. It's a kind of a colloquialism that in the translations got a little bit lost. Jesus wasn't necessarily talking about himself, but he was talking about his way. He's talking about what he is teaching us to be and to become in loving one another. And speaking about the Father that is in heaven and the heaven that is within us all, as he said earlier in the text. About a way of living that was from the inside out. Learning to love ourselves first and foremost, and then loving the Spirit of life, the Father, the kingdom of heaven, that's not just within us, but is all around us, he said. So he's looking at Thomas and saying, of course you know where it is. It is right there within you. Have you not been listening? I told you. I told you. Forgiveness can be a challenging thing. Forgiveness in many ways is not for the weak-minded or the weak-hearted. Gandhi says as much. Gandhi says that the weak can never forgive. I don't necessarily agree with that, but the weak can never forgive. But forgiveness is the attribute of the strong because it takes courage. It takes courage to let go of a position that we've held on to for so long. It takes courage to let go of attitudes that we have become attached to. They did me wrong way back when, and that is the reason I am the way I am. So sometimes it takes strength to let go of that position that says, you know what? So and so did that, and that's because that's the way, that's created me the way I am today. So if I have to change my position on that, that means I have to change my position on me, and I have to change. Oh my. I have to change. I have to have the courage to admit that maybe, just maybe, the position I've been holding is incorrect or no longer serves me. And if I have to let go of that position that no longer serves me, maybe a little chaos in my life will ensue. I may have to rearrange some things in my way of being that says, you know what? That doesn't work anymore. Now I get to do this. And I get to celebrate, quite honestly. I get to move through that chaotic period to a place where things are a little more clear, where I get to love a little bit more, I get to celebrate a little bit more, I get to be a little more excited about life, I get to see things in a new way. Because no longer am I holding on to that position of anger, frustration, jealousy, resentment. I've let go of a little bit of darkness out of my life and made room for more light, made room for more love, made room for more joy, made room for ultimately more freedom of being and freedom of expression, because no longer am I held prisoner by my own attitudes, by my own anger and resentment, my own lack of forgiveness, because somebody somewhere along the way misunderstood me. I get to change. I get to be different. I get to learn and grow and evolve. I get to let go of all that darkness and make room for more light, make room for more freedom. Because to forgive is to embrace all of life as it is. All of life as it is. I need not agree with it. I need not like it all. Yet to see it in all of its magical diversity and the tapestry of beauty, to look at all of it, the infinite variety that life is, and know that I don't have to like it all. I don't have to agree with it all. I just have to simply look at it and accept it and love it. It doesn't have to, all of it is not necessarily part of my day-to-day experience. It's a pretty massive universe. It's a pretty huge world we live in. And I don't encounter all of it on a day in, day out basis. I have my world. I have my experience and the things that I invite in. And if I can sit here and walk in a world and say, you know what? It's all love. It's all divine. It's all beauty. I may not like it all. And it's all changing and growing and evolving because I'm changing and growing and evolving. And one of the big pieces that can limit that experience for me is holding on to things that make me mad, holding on to things that upset me, holding on to resentment, holding on to whatever it is that's getting in my way. Can I forgive? Can I set it all aside and say, you know what? In the end, it's all the expression of God. And I can live it, I can love it, I can experience it, I can express it. Because I want to be free. And I believe that for Jesus, part of that process of freedom, part of getting to that freedom, was taking a moment with each of those disciples and washing their feet, serving them, taking a moment to love them as they are, in all of their humanity, in all of their fears and anxiety and jealousy, and they competed with each other and they got upset with each other and they said, no, I'm the best, no, I'm the best, and all the stuff, all the drama that went on with those guys, man, something. And he just loved them in that moment. Because he understood that beyond all those human frailties was that spark of divinity that is within each and every one of us. And so he took a few minutes with each of them to love them and accept them right where they were. And to remind them that ultimately they were simply loved by him. And so can we do that for ourselves? Can we live that example? To let all of that other stuff go and simply be free. To simply be free and no longer be prisoner, be held prisoner by some limited idea of love that we may have held on to up until now. So let's choose freedom. Let's choose to see a larger version of life. And this takes us into our practicing the principle for this week. To forgive is to embrace all of life as it is. I do not have to like or agree with it all. However, seeing it all as an expression of the divine is the path to freedom. This week, let's take some time to pause and reflect upon anything that we are excluding from life as being not divine. I mean, do we do that? How often do we do that? Oh, that's not part of God. Can't be. And then ask ourselves, well, what's possible if it is? What's possible if what I have thought up until now could not possibly be part of the expression of the divine? If I had held that out as being, nope, that's not it. What's possible if it is? And what do I have to do to get there? To be able to shift from an exclusive view to a view that is more inclusive, right? That says it's all God. It's all the divine. No exceptions. No holdouts. No hold cards. None of that. It's all divine. So, okay. Now it's y'all's turn. I've been yakking long enough. You get to talk. Open mic time. Anybody? Oh.
Yeah. Oops.
Okay. You're Valerie, and then you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. The Bible always seems to confuse me a lot of times with different verses, and one of your message was no man comes to the Father except by me. Can you explain that? That threw me off again.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when Jesus is saying no man comes to the Father except by me, what he's saying is not by me personally, but by my way. Okay? So it's not by me, but by my way. So he's saying, practice what I'm teaching, practice the principle, practice what I'm showing you, right? Love one another as I have loved you, understand the kingdom of heaven is within you, and on and on and on. We can go through all the teachings, right? What he's saying is, if you follow and practice what I have shown you, practice what I have taught you, that is the way to a realization and a recognition and an experience of the kingdom of heaven that is within you.
It's just except by me. Except
by his way.
By his way.
His way, not him.
Okay.
Yes, not him personally, but in his way. Got it now? All right. Good question. Thank you.
Not the physical, but the philosophical.
Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Within my life, I mean, people that have personally wronged me or something, I thought, I don't have a problem with that, But what about what's going on with people and leaders in the world now who I think are doing terrible things and causing terrible suffering? Are we supposed to forgive them?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, because I'll say so. I can say I'll speak for me personally. Okay, I can sit here and be angry and upset and say, you know what, you're just doing it wrong. I don't agree. I don't like it. I don't like what you've done. I don't like the decisions you're making, the choices you're making. I don't like the direction. Whatever it is, whether they're whoever they are. Celebrity, politician, neighbor down the street, person online, some influencer or whatever, whoever it is. I don't have to like them. I don't have to agree with them. The way forward for me and what works best for me is to just simply love them as God expressing, as the divine expressing, because if I hold that everyone is an individualized expression of the divine as I am, then there is a spark of love and divinity in me. I don't have to agree with their choices. I can still love them. Because if I am in a position where I am not practicing forgiveness with them or acceptance with them, do they know it? No, they don't know it. The only person that knows it is me. So who is it harming? Who is it limiting? Who is it irritating? It's irritating me. It's not affecting them at all. So I just choose to love them. Don't have to like them, don't have to agree with them, but I can love them as an expression of the divine, no matter what's going on. And maybe my seeing that as part of them calls that forward for them just a little bit, if that's the direction they want to go. Does that help?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I invite you to consider. Yeah, I invite you to consider it as a possibility. You bet. All right. Okay, Diane.
I know for me, I just was around some people that I went to high school with, and some people mentioned things that have happened, and I know that I've truly forgiven some of those things because I don't even remember them.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminded me of how things I think I've forgiven, and I'm still sitting in judgment in about right now. I mean, a couple of things came up in my mind, and I thought I was still judging that person or that thing, and that's not forgiveness for me. Mm-hmm. So it'd be nice if I could blank it all out and know that I've forgiven it. So
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more. Anybody? Okay, wrap it up then. Let's take this all into prayer then. So let's begin with gratitude. Begin with loving and knowing and accepting that there is one infinite power and presence, and that is God, that is the divine expressed at every point. Expressed as love and joy, as forgiveness, as letting go, as acceptance. And so as we move into this time, as we begin to close today, we understand that this presence surrounds us, enfolds us, lifts us up, and moves through us as us in each and every moment. Each and every one of us here in the space, and all of you online, watching now or later at another time, we trust that all is well and that life is good and joy-filled and loving and prosperous and simply wonderful and magical right where we are. We set aside everything that has gone before, anything that may be holding us back, limiting us, upsetting us. We let it all go. And allow ourselves to live free, to celebrate life and love. And we know this for ourselves. We know that for the community in which we live, for anybody, anywhere on their journey in whatever faith, tradition we may be experiencing, they may be expressing. We know that it is all God expressed. That is life divine. And so we move forward into the rest of this day and into the rest of our week, trusting that we are lifted up, guided, guarded, directed, and protected by love, by God as love, individualized as each and every one of us. And so we let it be, and so it is.